In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the especially merciful. I'd like to welcome you to this video where I'll be discussing my main reasons as to why I conclude that Christianity is false. And I will bring the various proofs for this claim, and I will be touching base to the claim of the bigots as to why Islam, or as to why they feel Islam is not true. Now, as I said in other videos, I do these videos as a means of getting back at the bigots. It is to teach the bigots a lesson, to stop on insulting Islam and insulting the Prophet Muhammad, and to stop harassing Islam. And these are the apologetic bigots. So I do these videos to teach them a lesson, and to teach people like them a lesson, and to teach their followers a lesson, and let them get a dose of their own medicine. As for the tolerant Christians, or the tolerant Jews, or tolerant people of any religion, I don't have an issue with you. I say to you, peace. But as for the bigots, I intend to teach them a lesson and to give them a dose of their own medicine. Now, the main reasons and the conclusion as to why I believe Christianity is false, and I will bring the various proofs. Number one, the Christians claim that Jesus died for sins, and that he came on earth to die for sins, to remove the sins of mankind, in order for mankind to be cleansed of their sin, and in order for God to forgive them. And that God cannot forgive sin or sins except that he has to kill himself, or kill his son, or sacrifice, as they say, in order to forgive sin. And I will prove that's false. The evidence that that is false is the fact that Moses killed a man in Egypt by accident. Moses killed a man in Egypt by accident, and he requested God to forgive him his sin. And God forgave Moses his sin. The second proof is that Jonah, the man who was swallowed by the whale, the prophet who was swallowed by the whale as a punishment for disobeying God and leaving what God had commanded him to do. God had commanded him to preach the message to the people, and he had felt fed up and he left. And as a result, God caused the whale to swallow him. And in the stomach of the whale, he asked God forgiveness, and God forgave him his sin. And he let the whale let him out on the seashore. So if you were to say that God cannot forgive sin except that he sacrifices himself or kills himself or his son in order to forgive sin, then the question is, who forgave Moses' sin when he killed the man in Egypt? And who forgave Jonah's sin when he disobeyed God, and God punished him by the whale. Jesus had not come at that point, yet God still forgave them. And he didn't say that I have to sacrifice someone in the future in order to forgive you your sin, but he forgave them. That's the first point regarding the concept of the crucifixion, or the concept of dying for sin. The second point is Jesus himself said, For verily I tell you, that if you say to your brother, Raka, you will be condemned by the courts. And if you say to your brother, You fool, you will be punished in the fire of hell. Now I ask the Christians, where is the concept of the crucifixion and Jesus dying for sin in this verse, where Jesus himself says that if you do simply call your brother fool, you are at risk and you will go to hell. He did not say, I will take your sin. Why is he threatening them with hell if he died for their sin? If he died for their sin, shouldn't he have said, I will take your sin? He didn't say that. That's the second point. With regard to the crucifixion, the third point is, why is it that you believe that God has to kill himself or kill his son? Which, by the way, the Christians believe that the Son and God are one and the same. Somehow the Father is the Son and the Son is the Father. I have no idea how in the world that works, but that's exactly what the vast majority of the Christians claim. With exception to the Jehovah's Witness, and the Mormons, the vast majority of Christians claim that the Father is the Son and the Son is the Father. They're both one and the same. In addition to that, they believe in the Holy Ghost is also one and the same. How that works, I have no clue. The third point is that why do you believe that God has to kill himself in order to forgive sins? Why is it that God cannot just simply forgive the sin? Is God so merciless that he has to kill himself or kill his son to forgive sins? If you were to say he is so merciful that he ended up killing himself or his son in order to forgive sins, the answer to that is that's totally illogical. Because when somebody's merciful, they don't kill someone else on account of somebody else's sin. That is called injustice. And for him to kill himself or sacrifice himself in order to forgive sins is considered illogical and nonsensical. Why can't he just forgive the sin? Is he so merciless that he has to kill himself or kill others to forgive sins? If I was to say, if you had a child and he did something that you told him not to do, and he comes to you and he says, Father, Mother, I did something wrong, can you forgive me? And he admit his sin, or he admitted his wrong action, and he was sorry, truly. And you say to him, sorry, I cannot forgive you. The only way I can forgive you is if I hang myself on a cross and bleed to death. That is the only way I can forgive you. I have to sacrifice myself. He will look at you with his mouth wide open and will say, what in the world is wrong with you? You are not normal in the mind. Something is wrong. You try that out. If it's not logical on a child, a 6-year-old kid, cannot accept that, and he will say that's totally illogical, then how is it that an adult can accept that God would do such a thing? That's with regard to the crucifixion. And as for the claim that Jesus is God, and we have made multiple videos on this, and I have a detailed video that will go up soon, which shows the various verses where Jesus says, I was sent by the one in heaven. I was sent by God, not by my own accord. I obey God. I pray to God. I listen to God. Why would God say, I obey God? That makes no sense. Why would God say, not my will, but your will be done? Whose will be done? Himself? That makes no sense. Why would God say, I was not sent on my own accord, God sent me? God says to himself, I was not sent on my own accord, God sent me? That makes no sense. Why would God fall on his face and pray to himself? That makes no sense. Jesus says, I am going back to my Father and your Father, my God and your God. Why would God say, my Father and your Father, to himself? And in addition, Jesus didn't refer to God as his own Father, but he said, according to the Bible, that God is everybody's Father, meaning he's like a relation as a parent with his children, that you are to obey him, and he is the one who has the authority as a parent has over his children. But he didn't mean it literally, according to that verse, because he said, my God and your God, my Father and your Father. So he didn't leave the term Father exclusive to himself. And he said, you are all the sons of God. He didn't leave the term exclusively to himself. That is, if he even said it. And that's an additional dispute. The third point, and the third reason as to why I conclude that Christianity is false, is the fact that the Bible was recorded at least 100 to 300 years after Jesus left earth. And it was not even recorded in his mother tongue, it was recorded in Greek. Jesus' mother tongue was not Greek, it was Aramaic. So the question is, why is the language of the Bible not recorded in Jesus' mother tongue? That's first question. Second question, why did it take 100 to 300 years for the text to start being recorded? Show me the original text that was recorded in Aramaic at Jesus' time. It doesn't exist. If the Christians were to say, what about the Quran? Show us the text that was recorded in the Prophet Muhammad's time. The difference is the Quran is memorized by millions of people, word for word, for 14 centuries. I challenge the Christians to bring me one single man who has memorized the Bible, word for word. Just one. Just one. And they can't. The last reason as to why I believe Christianity is false is that if Christianity was true, then why didn't Abraham say God has a son? Why didn't Abraham say God died for sins, or God will come and die for sins? Why didn't Abraham worship Jesus? Why didn't Abraham so much as hint? He didn't even hint at Jesus. He was the father of all prophets, the father of all religion, the first of all prophets, the first of all messengers. If it was true, Abraham would have been the first to worship Jesus, or to be the first to mention that Jesus is coming, or be the first to mention the Trinity, or even so much as hint at Jesus, and he didn't. That should be more than enough reason to have doubts. In addition, why didn't Isaac, Ishmael, Jacob, Lot, Jonah, Joseph, David, Solomon, Moses, and all the rest, why didn't they say God has a son? Why didn't they mention that God has a son? Why didn't they worship the Son? Why didn't they mention the Trinity? And lastly, and the most damning of reasons, Jesus himself never mentioned the concept of the Trinity. I challenge any Christian to show me one single verse in the Bible where Jesus says or talks about the concept of the Trinity. I want Jesus himself. Don't bring me verses from Paul or anyone else. I demand Jesus himself. I want his verses and his claim where he talks about the Trinity. As to what I know of this point and from what I read up to this point, and I will admit I did not read the entire Bible. I've read some of it. But up to this point I have not seen any single verse in the New Testament where Jesus himself even so much as mentions the concept of the Trinity. So show me the verse and educate me if I'm not educated. I conclude with, may the peace and blessings be on the Prophet Muhammad and on all those who follow him until the last day. And I conclude with, may the peace and blessings be upon the Prophet Jesus, whose real name was not even Jesus. That's a Greek name. I challenge the Christians to show me what is Jesus' real name in Aramaic. You should at least know his name. May the peace and blessings be on the Prophet Isa, Jesus, and on all those who follow him until the last day.